Welcome to it. Welcome to it. It is almost 12:45 on a Monday afternoon. It is time for the Talk That Talk radio show. I am your host, Terrell Chatterbox Emerson, in studio with a familiar face. You guys already know who it is. Miss Alex White is in the building. Alex, what's going on with you, lady?
Happy to be here. It is awesome being at the Allegiant Stadium before Monday Night Football. Raiders and Cowboys kick off here soon. And thank you, Terrell. Got me my media pass and everything and showed me the ropes because I've never come down here for a Raiders game with the media.
Yeah, no, and that's actually kind of one of the things, right? We had a last minute studio switch up. We had to go downstairs and get Alex all set up. We had to just work through some kinks, right? Some last minute kind of kinks in the show. But of course, it wouldn't be Monday Night Football without him, right? So we shall see. We are 4.5 hours away from kickoff here from Allegiant Stadium. We're here sitting at about the 40-yard line of Allegiant Stadium as we speak. We do have a lot to get to with you guys. It is episode 56 of season 7 of the Talk That Talk radio show. So definitely got some years logged in under our belts. But in totality, this is episode 382 of the Talk That Talk radio show. Still have episode 400 upcoming. Still have some things that we want to do in order to make that show a reality in terms of the way that we want to do it. But again, guys, we appreciate you guys for just sticking with us and supporting us, right? This is our first show in almost 2 months. We took a little hiatus as you hear some of the stadium happenings right now before Monday Night Football. But again, if you guys would like to follow us on social medias, all you guys have to do is go to your search bar, type in Talk That Talk radio show. Once again, you guys just go to the search bar, type in Talk That Talk radio show. You guys can do it on YouTube. You guys can do it on Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. The one thing that's different is our Twitter. Our Twitter is at Talk That Talk LV. Our Twitter is at Talk That Talk LV. But other than that, Lex, we can get to it, man. We can get to it. I do have a tip in from my mom.
Yes.
And then we can get right into this Monday Night Football game before breaking down some other things that are happening around the Valley. My mom sent this tip in earlier today. I like it, so we can get to it, and then we can go ahead and start with the show. But she said, whenever you find yourself doubting how far you can go, just remember how far you've come. Remember everything you have faced, all the battles you have won, and all the fears you have overcome. So I think on a day like today, doing our first official show from Allegiant Stadium, I think that was a good one to read for a couple different reasons. My dad called me this morning and was like, how you feel? I said, nerves, good nerves. But I think we're good. And then the fact that we're starting about 40 minutes after our scheduled start, that kind of lets you know a little bit about where the nerves come from, right? Usually you do these remote shows, you do these one-off shows, you do these special shows, and sometimes some things come up. But we're live on air right now. I see some people in the comments right now talking about tonight's matchup. Well, let's talk a little bit about it, right? Monday Night Football, capping off Week 11, here from Allegiant Stadium. You get the Dallas Cowboys and the Las Vegas Raiders. Of course, let's start with the Raiders. Their third primetime game of the season. No such luck in primetime games so far this year. They have a 20-9 loss to the Chargers on a Monday night, and then they have a 10-7 loss to the Broncos on a Thursday night. Your gut feeling when you walk into the building today, what do you feel like the outcome might be?
I'm going to be honest. I think the Raiders could win outright. I really do. I think some of their strengths can slow down this Dallas offense, and I think their defense is better than a lot of the numbers say, right? The points per game allowed isn't great, but the yards is, and I think that the offense kind of put the defense in bad situations. But Brock Bowers is back. He's been back for 2 games now. I like what I saw from the Raiders against the Broncos. So we just saw the Denver Broncos beat the Chiefs yesterday, right? That is the elite defense. So that was a tough task on Thursday night. They have a little extra time to prepare. So do the Cowboys. But I like what I saw in that matchup. That was a really good defense to go against. They have an easier task against this Cowboys defense, if I'm not mistaken, one of the worst in the league, right?
And the interesting thing is, my dad would like to tell you opposite, right? So, of course, we all know my dad is a Cowboy fan. We'll see if he gets his tip in before the end of the day. But when you mentioned what the Raiders have gone up against over the last couple of weeks, 2 of the last 3 weeks, the Raiders' offense have been held to 7 points or less, right? And then that one time that they did score over 7 points. It scored 29 in an overtime loss to Jacksonville here from this building. I was in the building when it happened. So let's talk a little bit about this Raider offense, right? So actually, let's talk about the Raider team as a whole. Let's do that first. In the second hour, we will talk a little bit about um, what we can expect from this Raider offense or lack thereof, right? In certain moments. And yeah, see, and I see shout to Chris Wynn right now in the comments talking a little bit about Brock Bowers. But the Raiders are coming in having lost 3 straight games, right? They're 2-7 overall. They're entering this game with a hit or miss offense. This Raider group, it appears that it starts and stops with Brock Bowers, right? Brock Bowers has proven to kind of be the anchor for this offense. The problem is there's so many things around him that have to go right in order for Brock Bowers to be successful in this offense.
Yeah.
And it hasn't always clicked, right? So that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to tonight, cohesiveness, right? And one of the ways that you can see that right away is that opening drive. That opening drive is scripted. What are the Raiders going out there doing? What do the Raiders look like when they're doing it? How confident do they look? Hopefully when they're running or when they're moving the football, we'll see how much Ashton Genty is a part of that as well. But let's talk about this Cowboy defense because, again, growing up a Packer fan, right, I'm sure I wasn't the only person that had eyes on that Dallas Cowboy Green Bay Packer game, right? That game,
a tie?
yeah, right? Nonetheless, but 40 points on the board is kind of what I want to talk about, right? Because we talk a lot about that Green Bay defense and what that Green Bay defense is supposed to be, even with some of the questions that you have about the secondary. I think what makes it interesting is this Cowboy team, every time I've underestimated them, they've shown up. Every time I've expected them to show up, they've gone away, right?
We haven't even got to talk that much this season, and that has happened to me game by game with this Dallas Cowboys team. I thought Monday Night Football against the Cardinals was their spot, and Jacoby Brissett went in there and did what he wanted. Cardinals came up on top in that one. So I have been kind of in that same boat with this Dallas team, which does make me a little bit nervous, where I'm leaning towards the Raiders, thinking, take the points, 3.5. I think they can keep it close or win outright. But like you said, when I underestimate the Cowboys, they really show up.
The problem is when the Cowboys don't show up, at least to our standards, the Cowboys don't show up, and they'll go out there and score 20 points or so. The problem is when this Raider team doesn't show up, you can't win a game if you're not scoring the football. So, again, if we're doing predictions early, and obviously we'll get to what the Raiders have looked like all season long in the second part of the show, but if we are going just initial gut instinct, I don't have it ending well for the Raiders tonight. I have them going 0-3 in primetime games. Not to mention, too, this, as a matter of fact, I want to double check, too. I want to make sure that I'm right about this. Because, yeah, okay, so I want to be sure. I called my dad this morning just to double check. This is the Dallas Cowboys. When you include that bye week, this is their first game since the passing of Marshawn Kneeland. And again, we understand that there are bigger things out here than sports, right? There's real life out here, bigger than sports. And when you narrow it down to sports, usually these are the moments when that group rallies. And this group is going to be playing with heavy hearts, and this group is going to be playing with something to prove. And I think all things considered, if the Raiders don't have their helmets strapped up for this one, I think this one can get out of hand very, very quickly.
The human element of it all, right? And of course, he was on the defensive side. So what you're saying is that side's going to want to step up big for him tonight. They also added a couple pieces before the trade deadline, so we'll see how that plays out tonight. But you bring up a good point there, Cheryl. It's bigger than football. It's the life and the human element part of it. So.
An interesting thing is, too, you kind of just mentioned it, but this Dallas team as a whole, yes, the defense is going to want to step up, but you kind of just talked about it too. I was at a bar maybe 2 weeks ago, or maybe last week, and we were talking about the Dallas trades, right? And I was like, yeah, the Quinnen Williams deal is like, that should be a big deal. Somebody followed that up with, well, it's not going to change anything. And I sat there and said, well, didn't they get Logan Wilson too? And they were like, yeah. I said, well, if the Dallas Cowboys' problem is stopping the run, You got two guys at two different levels to plug right in the middle. I don't know that this doesn't work. I don't. I don't know that this doesn't work. I know. Well, at least let me not say that. Let me not say I know, right? But I believe that Raider fans are expecting Chip Kelly to give Ashton Jeanty a chance against this defense, especially considering some of the issues it's had with defending the run. But we shall see. We shall see with this group. I know my dad is going to talk about Overshown, of course. But yeah, we have a lot to talk about in terms of this game. We have a lot of time to talk about it in terms of this game. But really quick, this is the 14th meeting between Dallas and Las Vegas. 13 games have already been completed. Do you want to tell me who has the edge?
Oh, I'm gonna guess the Cowboys.
You want to give me a record? If it's 13 games?
I don't know, 7-6.
Interesting. Because it is 7-6, but it's in favor of the Raiders.
Okay.
So it's in favor of the Raiders. The last meeting was November 25th, 2021. From Jerry's World, actually. 36-33 was the final in overtime. Of course, that final drive engineered by Derek Carr, somebody who, in my opinion, I have to go back and look at some numbers to see if they actually are in my favor. But I always said I worried about a player like Derek Carr, 10 a.m. in Jacksonville. I don't necessarily worry about Derek Carr at 5:15 p.m. against the Dallas Cowboys. I just don't. And that was one of those moments, right? Let's see if we can get another classic like that in this series tonight from Allegiant Stadium. But let's talk about week 11. Talk to me.
And some free football. I would not mind overtime.
That would be good.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already had some free football recently. We'll talk about that when we talk about UNLV football.
That's right.
But week 11 in the NFL. Let's break it down real quick. What stood out to you aside from the Giants almost beating the Packers?
Well, let's start right there. Do you think the Packers are? Do you think they're a true Super Bowl contender? We know their defense is, right? They've been pretty elite. They've had a couple slip-ups. We mentioned it with the Cowboys and that tie. They lost to the Panthers, but we've also seen the best of them, and they were right in there with the Eagles last week. But their offense is really sputtering, and they have their injuries too.
Yeah, no, for sure.
What do you think?
I think with Green Bay, and the interesting thing is I haven't seen it from this group. I'm not going to say ever, but I don't believe I've seen it from this group in quite some time. There is a feeling that Green Bay feels like it wins games in the locker room. And sometimes when Green Bay comes out, those first 10, 15 minutes, it looks as if Green Bay feels like they already won the game.
Yeah.
And that's, again, going back to that overall record, right? Yes, they're 6-3-1. You talked about the tie with Dallas, but let's talk about some of those other losses, right? There's a loss to Carolina in there where it looked like you didn't show up. There's a loss to Cleveland in there that it looks like you should have already won when you walked out on the field. So in my history of covering football, in my history of being a fan of football, those teams usually don't win championships. I don't really know what else to say it, or what other way to say it.
Yeah.
Green Bay, it appears that they got that, obviously that historic move with Micah Parsons. And it seems like there's a small bit of that locker room that felt entitled. And I think usually when you're entitled in football, you get punched in the mouth. So that's usually what tends to happen when Green Bay takes the field.
I think that is said very well. And I think we saw 4 teams yesterday, 2 different games, the top of the NFC, right? And I'll still classify the Lions right there, even though they did lose to the Eagles as well. But Seahawks and Rams, I mean.
What a game.
Yeah, those are 2 really good teams. And, I mean, for Seattle to still be in that game with the turnovers that they had is pretty wild. But I think both those teams in that division are very live to represent the NFC this year.
And that's kind of what I was talking about too, right? We know how explosive this LA Ram offense is, right? Matter of fact, and I just want to go back and look at this number really quick because if I recall correctly, it shows, and I could be wrong, but I believe that Matthew Stafford has 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And that is correct. So I wanted to make sure I wasn't going crazy. But 27-2 Stafford, MVP-like numbers for a 7-2 team. And they go out there and get 4 extra opportunities and with 4 interceptions from Sam Darnold, and they win by 2 points. To me, I came away from that game saying, okay, the Rams are the Rams, right? The Rams are real. And then I also looked at the other side of it, and I said, well, Seattle's real too. as long as Sam Darnold doesn't turn the football over, I think Seattle has a real shot to go and shock some people in this year's postseason. I do think they ultimately get there. Again, anybody who has any questions about me and the way that I felt about Sam Darnold in the past, I've told you guys, I think I've tried to be pretty consistent. I try not to judge quarterbacks when they're drafted and go to Carolina, Cleveland, or the Jets. So there's that.
Yeah, that's good.
I refuse to judge a quarterback until I see them elsewhere. And then we saw what Sam Darnold was able to do with the Vikings. We saw what Sam Darnold was able to do with the 49ers. We're seeing what Sam Darnold can do with the Seattle Seahawks now. Again, I don't think that one game, albeit horrific, that game looked pretty bad for Sam Darnold in moments. I'm not ready to write off the Seattle Seahawks, especially considering that defense and what we saw against that Ram offense.
Mike McDonald has just done such a good job there. I think people forget that they had 10.
Not sure what was last picked up by the broadcast, but I did see somewhere in the comments that it may have been frozen, so we went ahead and rebooted. Hopefully, everybody can hear everything. But again, going back to that UNLV win, right? Big time win for this program. UNLV, first of all, I had a conversation last week, and this was before this win. So this was 7-2. And somebody was like, well, UNLV can't afford to lose this week, right? I said, you know what's funny? They said, what? I said, for UNLV to be a basketball school, I never thought that this program would be 7-2, and I would hear people complaining.
I mean, the expectations are through the roof now. It is funny. People say, Mountain West Conference Championship game or bust, maybe even, the 12-team college football playoffs. So the expectations are very high now here in Vegas. But it is important people kind of scale it back a little, right? And 7 wins is great for most college programs.
Yeah, and now you add this victory most recently, and now they have 8, right? So now it's 8 wins for UNLV through its first 10 games. Again, we'll get to the specifics of that win in a second, but let's talk about the conference for 1 second. Because when somebody asked me, could UNLV afford to lose that game to Utah State, to be honest with you, the answer was no, right? Because they're still alive in this Mountain West. The Mountain West looks a little funky. The Mountain West looks a little weird. The Mountain West looks a little wonky. But UNLV still has a chance. So I've been covering it the last 3 games or so. UNLV has been one of 5 teams with 2 losses. I think it was 4 teams originally with 2 losses in the conference. Now they're one of 5 teams with 2 losses in the conference. Now they find themselves in a 5-way tie for second place. They're tied with Fresno. They're tied with Boise. Excuse me, let me go ahead and change that up because I would hate it if I went to Fresno. They're tied with Fresno State, Boise State, New Mexico, and Hawaii. Here's the thing. UNLV has already lost to Boise State. UNLV has lost to New Mexico. UNLV plays Hawaii next, who is San Diego State's lone conference loss. So nothing is on the side of UNLV right now, but at least UNLV holds all the cards, right? So UNLV controls its own destiny. We'll see if they can continue to stack wins.
I mean, that Hawaii offense has been pretty impressive, right? That San Diego State defense is elite.
Insane.
They've been top 5 in the nation, not just Mountain West, right? In points allowed, and went to Hawaii and really, struggled. That offense is really good. So it's definitely going to be a test for the Rebels.
I think UNLV's biggest win going into this game is that it's here from Allegiant. That's the biggest thing, right? I've always called the November road trip to San Jose State a trap game, right? Once it gets a little muddy and once it gets a little wet, things get weird, right? And same situation for that November trip to Hawaii.
Yeah.
I know just from phoning some people, that loss at Hawaii a couple of years ago is what lost Marcus Arroyo his job. The way that game went left. But again, that's why I always say you got to kind of make room for that. Like those trips to Hawaii in November usually can have some weird things happen, can have some crazy things happen. I think UNLV's first win of week 13, I believe, is that game is going to take place from Allegiant Stadium. It is a Friday night game. It is November 21st, 7:30 p.m. from this building. I'll be here. It's the Ninth Island Showdown as well as senior night for UNLV. Big time opportunity for this program. 9 wins would be huge, with potentially 2 more to play.
Yeah. And this place will be, it'll be full, right?
Yeah.
With both UNLV and Hawaii fans because they show up, like you said, Ninth Island, and there's a lot of fans here for both teams. So if you're a UNLV fan, get out here, definitely.
Yeah.
You want, like you're saying, it helps that it is at home. Well, it needs to be a home stadium. They need to have that home field advantage.
And here's the thing, too. I just want to give this one little caveat. I don't know if we haven't had a lot of time to talk about it, but UNLV, and I said this, I think, the first season here at Allegiant, I looked around, and I said, wow. I said, they never expect UNLV to be the ranked team, huh? And everybody laughed and was like, why do you say that? How are the fans supposed to get down onto the field?
Right.
And everybody looked around and was like, that's a great point. So this season, one of the things that I've noticed, those bleachers that are on the field, right at the back of the end zone, they're waiting for a moment, right? And we've seen Dan Mullen pick up big wins and run right over there to that section and kind of start hyping it up. I do think that UNLV football is poised to empty that section and have them flood the field. I don't know when it happens. I don't know why it happens, but I do believe that something is bubbling here with this program.
I like it. Of course, that is one of the, pros and cons of getting to play in a professional stadium like this. It's interesting with everything that's going on with UCLA, right in the Rose Bowl. We'll see what happens if they end up moving away from there. But
leave it to UCLA.
That's one thing. So good to know. You've been scoping it out. You say that it is possible for the fans to get out.
Yeah, no. Now it's possible. Will they have an opportunity to this year? I don't know. But at least now the possibility is now on the table. Speaking of possibilities too, let's talk UNLV basketball really quick. Again, people have asked me all season long what I expected for this group. I expected about 500. I expected about 16 wins, between 16 and 18 wins for this group. And this is not a knock on the players, not a knock on Josh Pastner, not a knock on the administration, none of the above. I think it's just happenstance. I think at the time that Josh Pastner was hired, he was kind of put behind the 8 ball in terms of building this program, right? And yes, they just got through playing a team with no returners. Josh Pastner has the next worst thing to that. He has 1 returner. He has a lone returner. He's dealing with an entire group of new guys in a new situation, right? So a lot of things just aren't built to go in his favor, and I think the interesting thing is he has the attitude and he has the makeup to take on the challenge, and I think that's the interesting thing. The only thing that I've continued to say is that if UNLV, the boosters, and if UNLV, the administration, if they don't give Josh Pastner time, none of this matters, right? So you're waiting for something to be happy about. You're waiting for something to kind of hang your hat on, and then yesterday happens, right? Yesterday, they beat a team in Memphis. A couple different things come up for me. They beat a team in Memphis that beat them at home last year. That's number 1. Were picked to win the American Conference this year. That's number 2. They beat them on the road.
Yeah.
That's number 3. Now, this group is a conundrum. That's the word I'll use. This group is very, very confusing, only because we haven't seen this group at full strength. And I think as long as we have injuries with this group, which could last a good portion of the season, I don't know that we're going to know what this team looks like at full strength, right? So I think the fact that you go out there and you have a first half by Howie Fleming Jr., who goes out there 21 points on 8 of 10 shooting. He ends up with 25 points, 12 rebounds. He came into the game averaging 7.3 points per game for his career as a senior. So we've seen a couple of seniors over the past couple of years get to UNLV and have their breakout moments and or have their breakout seasons. Howie Fleming Jr. might be in the middle of one, or actually in the beginning of one for himself right now. If that continues to trend in the right direction, who knows what this program could look like just in terms of leadership, right? And then you follow that up, and if you want to just say that leadership is one half of the spectrum, let's talk about the other half of the spectrum. The youth movement, right? We had Nas Cunningham go off a couple of games ago for 25 points. And now in this one, you get Isaac Williamson going off for 25 points in his first collegiate start, in his second collegiate outing. Now, again, if I said UNLV is looking at possibly 16 to 18 wins this year, if I think that's on the low end for this program, seeing things like Nas Cunningham score 25 points, seeing moments like Isaac Williamson getting his first start and scoring 25 points, those are all positives for the future. I don't know that bears any fruit this season, but next season and beyond, what am I excited about Josh Pastner and his running Rebels? I'm excited about a lot.
Would you say there was extra motivation? Because, of course, Josh Pastner's former team in Memphis. But, I mean, even if they use that as extra motivation, now we saw what they can do, right? And piece together a full game. It is wild seeing them fall to a team like Montana and then turning around on the road and beating Memphis.
How about UT Martin? Add that to the group, right? And I think what's so interesting about this group, they played a team yesterday, again, that had no returners, right? So they're playing a team that is still actively trying to learn itself. And if you saw some of those turnovers, that's exactly what that was. That was not knowing your personnel. And that group is going to get it together by the end of November, in my opinion. And I think once that happens, you'll start to see more cohesive play from Memphis. But the storyline is UNLV, right? UNLV was able to capitalize on those turnovers, turn them into points on the other end, turn them into fast break style points. And that's something that Josh Pastner said. He said in watching UNLV over the past couple of years, he hasn't seen that. He hasn't seen that commitment to running, right? It's the running Rebels, not the walking Rebels, not the hustling. Like, we're the running like, run, get out there and run. And the best way to run is to run, is to play out of your defense, is to get turnovers and get out running, right? I want to let that sound play. I'm just going to let that play for a little bit. There was no way I wasn't going to let that play. There was no way ever. But getting back to this college basketball, it was a 14-point win for UNLV, right? 92-78. That's the thing that I think we can get from this group. You're going to get 80 to 85 points in some of these wins. You're going to get 100-plus points in some of these blowout wins. This season, I don't want to speak about next season, but this season, you're also going to get the UT Martins. You're also going to get struggling with Montana. You're also going to get those moments, right? People keep asking me what I expect from the Alabama game. A lot of points. That's what I expect. I expect a lot of points, and Alabama is one of the best running teams in the country. So I'm just interested to see. And if you guys can see, Harry Ruiz behind me as we get set up here from Allegiant Stadium ahead of Monday Night Football, where the Dallas Cowboys will be taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. But yeah, man, I mean, again, this group has a chance to do something special. This group has a chance to turn some heads. I just don't know that any of that happens this year.
Well, we'll find out this Thursday. Now they're going down again. Lesser opponent should be able to take care of business against St. Joseph's before semi-home neutral site here against Maryland. So this is a big test, right? How focused can you remain after a big upset win over Memphis?
And you kind of just talked about it, right? And one of the reasons why you brought that up, and I haven't done my deep dive into St. Joseph's yet. I've been so wrapped up with Monday Night Football. But once I do my research, I'm almost positive I'm going to find a way to convince myself that St. Joseph is not either going to make this a game or they might take this game. For every reason that you just said, right? You just picked up a big game, a big win on the road against Memphis in an environment where nobody expected you to win. Let's just be honest. And I'm not even sure if I expected them to win. And you go out there, you don't only win, but you win. And first of all, do you know that UNLV led for 37 minutes and 55 seconds of that game?
I did not realize that.
That's the thing that got me. Yeah. They led the entire second half. They led for almost 38 minutes of the 40-minute basketball game. This group may be entering Thursday, feeling themselves a little bit, a little Green Bay Packer-esque. And again, we've seen this group get punched in the mouth. And I know it's early, but we haven't really seen their ability to get off the canvas just yet. So if they are hit first against St. Joseph's, we could be in for a long one. And if not,
continuing to get healthier, though.
Yeah, right? No, definitely. Well, you're continuing to get healthy in the sense that Isaac Williamson played in his second collegiate game, right? After missing an opener. However, Laji Dembele re-aggravated his foot strain. So he didn't play against Memphis. And that is one of the reasons for some of the shakeup in the starting lineup. Al Green moves to the bench in favor of Isaac Williamson. Jacob Benarbi actually got the start in favor of Dembele. And now that's something that's back on everybody's radar, right? In terms of what that means for this group. But again, Miles Shea is going to be out for, I believe it was up to 2 months, was what was quoted by Josh Pastner. We know how college basketball is, how college sports are. You lose 2 months of a season, you might just chalk it up. You might just chalk up the year and come back healthy next year. We don't know if that's on the table for Miles, right? So, again, we'll see how all of that kind of works out. But you kind of just talked about it. It's their 4th home game in their first 5. And then you talked about it, the Player Era's Men's Championship, which takes place from the MGM. And it's another one, too. I think Michelob as well. It's 2 different venues. So that is also upcoming for UNLV. But before they get there, they have a game on Thursday night. That is November 20th, 7 p.m. against St. Joseph's.
Is this the second year this tournament is happening?
I think it's second year.
Yeah.
I think it's second year.
Okay. Did you make it out last year?
I didn't.
No.
I didn't. So around this time, what was I doing last year? Might have been preparing for the Raiders and Chargers. Usually that SoFi game I go to. So I probably was moving around somewhere around there.
Well, and UNLV wasn't in it last year.
Wasn't in what?
This tournament.
No.
So this will be a good opportunity. You'll probably get out there.
Oh, no, for sure. Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. We shall see. You kind of talked about it a second ago, too. They opened up against Maryland. They followed it up with Alabama. So not easy sledding at all. You get past those games. You get a championship game following that. We shall see what it looks like. Yeah. And this is interesting. Chris Wynn is in our comments right now talking about Penny Hardaway getting raked over the coals. In terms of Memphis Twitter, again, I'm going to highlight the fact that, yes, it looked a little crazy against a UNLV team. In all honesty, they probably should have lost that game last year. And this year, it's a little more understandable considering you're dealing with an entirely new team, including his son, right? His son is on the team, and he's a new face. So, again, I think that Penny should be given a little bit of, I don't want to say leeway, but be given a little bit of grace through the early stages of the season. I do think come American play, I do think if they're 4-4 through the first 8 or something like that, then maybe we can have some conversations about Penny Hardaway. But right now, I think this group has the leadership in place to bounce back from something like this.
Some breaking news.
You want to go ahead and break it?
Back to the gridiron. Looks like James Franklin will be the next Virginia Tech head coach just 5 weeks after he was fired from Penn State. I did not see that coming. I thought he was, not that Virginia Tech isn't a good football program and they have the past years, right, that were really good. I thought he was going to go somewhere even bigger. I thought he could potentially.
Uh-oh, here we go. There we go. Should be back. I mean, respectfully speaking to James Franklin and his situation, would you want to go to another high-profile situation after you were just ran out of Penn State?
Maybe not.
Probably not, right?
Maybe a little, one stepping stone in between.
That's what I was thinking more than anything. And again, let's localize it a little bit, right? Let's talk about Dan Mullen. People have talked about Dan Mullen leaving UNLV and going for a bigger opportunity. I think he ultimately does it. I thought maybe 2 years would be kind of around the roundabout. I thought when we heard his name brought up for Penn State, when we heard his name brought up for different programs, the first thing that went through my mind is, why would Dan get away from the heat, right, of college football for a little bit? And it looked like Dan kind of found a different form of happiness away from football. So the fact that he's back in football, the fact that he's in a city where he can continue to build on a football tradition, right? You can become the football legacy here in Vegas. And you don't need very long to do it, by the way. I don't know that Dan was chomping at the bit to put myself back under that microscope. And that's kind of the same situation with James Franklin. I don't know that he wanted to go to a Florida program. I don't know that he wanted to go to any other program in the SEC where potentially this could be worse than what I dealt with at Penn State. I don't know that I want to subject myself to that.
No, I mean, those are solid points, and kind of got to put yourself in the human aspect of these guys. And what they're thinking for their next move. But yeah, Dan Mullen, he seems very happy here. I think it'll be another year.
Yeah, for sure, for
At
sure.
least.
He also has a son, I believe, that graduates from Bishop Gorman next year. So, maybe that works out too. Maybe that just maybe the timeline just works out. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Speaking of overthinking, let's go back to some basketball really quick and talk about the Lady Rebels, because the UNLV Lady Rebels had an opportunity to pick up a second straight power conference win. They ended up ultimately falling short. It was 62-54 at home to Baylor. Now, keep in mind, this group played Baylor on the road in Waco last year, had a third quarter that did not go their way, and ultimately it was the difference in a loss to Baylor. Not the same situation this time around, right? They pretty much had the game in control from early on. It wasn't one of those runaway type games, but it was one of those where UNLV felt in control all game heading into the fourth quarter. In fact, they took a 6-point lead into the fourth quarter, only to have it squandered. I have to go back and see exactly what they lost that fourth, or how they lost that fourth quarter. But I do know of their last 18 field goals taken in the game, they only made one of them. So you're not going to win a game when that happens. I do also want to highlight that UNLV basketball went into this game coming off of a victory over DePaul, already picking up a power conference win this season. So that's two power conference tests in the first 3 games of the year. I've talked to Lindy LaRocque about her scheduling habits and things like that. And one of the things that she talks about, I sometimes call her schedule a murderer's row sometimes, because I'm just like, why do you have this game after this one right before this one? And Lindy kind of laughs, and Lindy's like, hey, come NCAA tournament time, that's what your schedule looks like. She was like, so we might as well get used to it in November and December. And I thought it was commendable of her to even want to put that pressure on her team, understanding that we do have the possibility to do some special things, and the only way that we do it is if we hold ourselves to the fire. This was an 8-point loss. This is a top 10 team in the nation. They were top 16, I believe, the week before, heading into the contest. The day of the contest, Baylor was 7th in the country, I believe it was. So the last time UNLV welcomed in a top 10 opponent was number 9 Oklahoma last year, and it was an 88-58 loss. And Lindy said, I don't believe that we're 30 points worse than that team. I don't think we're 30 points worse than any team. And then you follow that up with another top 10 performance this year, and that's kind of one of the things that I asked Lindy about. I mean, you don't want moral victories, right? But you do want to look a certain way, even in a loss. And I asked about this year's showing versus a top 10 team compared to last year. And she was like, I mean, at this point, we're continuing to see these types of teams. So as long as we continue to see these types of teams and they're continue to be put in front of us and on our schedule, we have no choice but to adapt to it. We have no choice but to get used to it. And I think that's one of the things that has always benefited this group come Mountain West play time. I actually talked to Desi about it a lot, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I said, well, Boise looks a little different after seeing Stanford, right? Wyoming looks a little different after seeing Arizona, right? And like, that's usually how this program looks. So if you thought Meadow Rowland going out there playing 40 minutes, giving you a double-double against a team like a Baylor or against a team like a DePaul, she might have some big games in the Mountain West, right? We've seen it before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love it that she's scheduling these games right now, because UNLV, I mean, they've been pretty dominant in the Mountain West, and it really hasn't benefited them enough, right, when it comes to tournament time, because you can still see their seeding, right, because they don't have those non-con games. So, I mean, yeah, get your team out there, get them scheduled. So you did ask about that fourth quarter. It was 19-5 for the Baylor Bears, so that is where the issue was. But
wait, so they lost that fourth quarter by 14 and lost the game by 8.
Yeah.
You lose the game or you score 5 points in the fourth quarter of a game of a fourth quarter that you led halfway through. They were scoreless at one point in that fourth quarter for about 4 minutes. I looked up and UNLV was up by a point. Like, again, we're not talking enough about this Lady Rebel defense either. And for a group that will hop into a zone, will hop into a full court trap, it didn't rely on too much of that against Baylor. It would hop into a zone when it needed to. Other than that, they played that game straight up for a good portion of it. where are we at? And Jasmine Lott too. That final field goal for UNLV, I mentioned it before. They went 1 of 18 to close the game. That one final field goal came from Jasmine Lott after she returned to the court. She appeared to kind of go down weird and was holding her right leg and looked like she was kind of holding near her hamstring. Jasmine suffered a knee injury last season that forced her to miss the entire season, which is why she's wearing that huge brace on her right knee. So when she goes down, she's holding in that area. The entire building kind of stops. I'm gonna be honest, you saw a look from Lindy that I don't know that I've ever seen. And again, Jasmine was the offensive anchor to that point. So to see her go down, go to the back, return to action, and account for that final field goal for UNLV, that kind of adds to my original point. She was the offense for this team for a good portion of it, right? And it's a beautiful thing to see, considering what she went through last year, considering the confidence that she's continuing to gain 3 games into the year. And it's going to be needed. It's going to be needed. This group is back in action on Tuesday against Montana State. It's on the road against Montana State. That game is Tuesday, November 18th, 6 p.m. That's their first road game of the year.
Terrell's largest lead for both teams was 8 points. So
that's insane.
UNLV did lead by 8 points. Baylor ultimately ended up winning by 8, and that was their largest lead.
Wow.
The game. Yeah, so.
Wow. That kind of tells you everything you need to know. And the funny thing is, I didn't type the story exactly like this, but I was going to talk about like-minded stats. So if you look at the assists, 13-12. You look at points in the paint, 32-32. Where else are we at? You look at rebounds, Baylor won by 3. Yeah, man. I mean, they both hit 5 threes. Two made field goals separate them. The game was about as evenly played as you can. When you see how lopsided that fourth quarter was, you actually realize how in command of this game UNLV was for a good portion of it. Again, more to kind of build off of and more to look forward to in terms of this group, in terms of what could be coming in the future. We are headed into hour number 2 of the Talk That Talk radio show. I'm Terrell. This is Alex. We are live from Allegiant Stadium. Again, game day operations are going through pregame, going through everything, getting everything set up for Monday Night Football tonight from Allegiant Stadium. The Las Vegas Raiders versus the Dallas Cowboys. 2-7 Raider team. I believe a 3-5-1 Cowboy team.
That is correct, yeah.
Just an opportunity to, if you want to salvage some portion of your season, now is a good time to start. If you're here in Vegas, hell, if you're in Dallas too.
It really is. It's the same situation for both teams. Both of them looking at this matchup like they have an opportunity to get this win, right? And kind of build off of it. So we'll see what happens.
Now, the Raiders have had an eventful first 9 games of the year. Let's call it that, right? Let's call it eventful because first year under Pete Carroll, first year with John Switek, Tom Brady is in the front office. Going back to the Josh Pastner point, I do not believe every situation is made up to be successful right away. And I just don't believe that anybody expected Pete Carroll to come in here and change this Vegas franchise around right away, except for Pete Carroll.
I was just going to say that exact same thing.
Except for Pete. And so Pete has come in, and I remember being at the Intermountain Healthcare Performance Center when I believe Ryan McFadden from ESPN asked Pete his expectation. And Pete said, we're going to win. And we're going to win a whole lot. And he said, I don't care if you write that down. And everybody went to type it, including myself. I want to follow that up by saying, as somebody who grew up in Southern California, growing up an SC fan, right? Having met Pete Carroll before growing up, that was always Uncle Pete. And with all due respect to Pete Carroll, in my 20 years of watching him growing up, right, I have never seen Pete Carroll look more confused than I have in the first 9 games of this season. And I think maybe around week 4, Pete Carroll realized, oh, I'm dealing with a different monster. I didn't really think that this is where I was landing at, right? And again, I don't think it's a situation that you can't fix. I do believe it's fixable. We saw Jack Del Rio have success here. We saw Rich Bisaccia have some success here. You can have success with this franchise. Can you have sustained success? That's the interesting thing. Now, for Pete Carroll, again, it's hard to call any season in professional sports a wash. This first season has to be considered a wash. When he said that he's never lost 10 games, or he's never not won 10 games in a season, in the back of my mind, I said, well, get ready for your first one. I had the Raiders winning 9 games this year max, and that's trending in the right direction, right? And then we see that the start that the Raiders have had so far this year, if the Raiders wanted to win 9 games or 10 games, even for that matter, they got some work to do. It begins tonight from Allegiant Stadium against the Cowboys. But again, they've come in, they've made moves, they've traded some guys out, right? I also think that this group, again, while you're still focused on the season, I do think this group does have their eye on the college football world. I do think this group has their eye on the NFL draft. I just think that all things considered, whatever your initial ceiling was for this year,
Yeah.
it has been drastically lowered, and I think because of that, it should allow some guys to kind of play with their ears pinned back. It should allow a different fervor from this group on both ends of the football. We'll see if we get it.
I mean, when you have 6 games on your schedule that are so tough, I mean, with an AFC that's pretty down, I think most people would agree with that right now. This has got to be the toughest division in this conference, right? I mean, you got the Chargers. The other 3 did all go to the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
And the moves that they have all made right now to kind of match the Chiefs, you brought it up. They won this division 9 years in a row coming into this one. So all 3 of these teams, Chargers, Broncos, and Raiders, forced to try and go out and make changes. And I mean, I love it. I like that we got Harbaugh and Sean Payton and now Pete Carroll all in the same division against Andy Reid trying to take over this division. But it was tough, and you're right. I had 9 wins is the ceiling too, and it's drastically had to be lowered. But it's a tough division, and it's got to take some time.
Yeah, and the thing is too, I've said this before, and I'll say this as much as I have the opportunity to say it. People ask me all the time, especially being here in Vegas, like some of the worst fans that I deal with, right? And we'll get to them in a split second, but you know, I have no problem calling out Vegas Golden Knight fans. You know that. I have no problem calling out UNLV basketball fans. You guys know that. There's this weird assumption that the Las Vegas Raiders fan base, Raider Nation, is a bad fan base to deal with. It's the exact opposite. I completely disagree. The Raider fan base is one of the best that I've been able to kind of deal with, even when they on my ass. Like, to be honest with you, like even when they're on me about certain things, this program, or excuse me, this franchise and their institution of fans as a whole, they want something to be happy for. They want something to cheer for. Again, they want something to hang their hat on, right? And again, we talk about some of the expectations for the Raiders. They're not, ironically enough, they're not cowboy delusional expectations all the time, right? But the Raiders oftentimes, as you said before, I think that's where the frustration kind of sets in. My brother's a lifelong Raider fan, and he'll come into the season and I'll be like, give me your expectation. And he'll be like, if I can get 7 wins, dog, like I'll be happy. And I realize at the end of the season, my brother is settling for 5. And those are the moments that I think Raider Nation is kind of getting tired of. Raider Nation doesn't have these wild expectations of the Raiders to go out there and win 13 games and sweep the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, they don't have these otherworldly expectations. They just want to be competitive consistently. And that's not what the franchise has been able to give them. Again, hopefully it starts tonight, because in order to be that sort of team, you got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat.
Yeah.
And again, if you're looking at records, yes, your team is sitting at 2-7, but the team across from you is 3-5-1. So even if they are better than you, they're not that much better than you, right? So go out there, make a statement, and hit them first. We'll see if the Raiders are able to do it.
The tough part is the Cowboys looking at their division, right? I mean, the Commanders and the Giants, they've both have their injuries, and right now the Cowboys are looking like they can get second in this division and potentially sneak into a wild card spot, right? Of course, the Eagles at the top of that division and that conference right now, but I don't know. I think they have a lot to play for themselves. So
they do. The NFC West is always interesting. And at the same time, too, of course, I'm going to shout out the NFC North, right? Because I do think the NFC North has 3 postseason teams. I don't know the order in which they happen, but the same can probably be said about the NFC West, right? So if that's the case, Dallas has a lot of making up to do, and they have a lot of ground to make up. I don't know if they're going to successfully make that up. But I had the Cowboys shocking some people because expectations were low.
Yeah.
The Cowboys are probably going to end up about where I expected them to end up, minus the tie that I wasn't expecting and I wasn't accounting for. But other than that, the Cowboys are probably going to end up around the spot that I expected them to.
How many wins was that?
Not much. After the trade, I had them around 8. Had them around 8 or 9. But again, I had moments where they would go out and they score 40. I had those moments. I didn't have it against the Packers, but I had those moments, right? So again, in me saying that, and again, now we're getting closer and closer. Now we're 3.5 hours away from Monday Night Football here from Allegiant Stadium. I told you guys in the first 15 minutes or so. I told you guys in the second hour we would get to more of a Raider breakdown. And now that I've had some more time to kind of digest it and sit with it, Alex, I think I'm going to lean into it. I said it before. If Dallas scores on its first drive,
you think it's going to get out of hand, huh?
I think this Dallas offense might be clicking tonight. And again, this matters a lot. And you guys know the conversations kind of that I've had with Max Crosby in the past. And I don't think there's another human being crazier than Max Crosby with shoulder pads on. If he's able to create some sort of havoc and confusion on the first drive. And again, of course, Aqib Talib kind of went viral for some of the things that he said about Max Crosby recently, about Jacksonville running for over 200 yards, things of that nature. I'm not going to throw a shot at AT by no means, but because it's impossible to watch every single game, right? Not really, but there's ways to go about it. So I don't expect everybody to have done it, right? If you look at some of the plays where Max doesn't get to the backfield, look at how much attention is paid to Max. Look at how many other avenues that opens up for guys like Tyree Wilson, that opens up moments for guys like Adam Butler, that open up moments for guys like Thomas Booker. Those are the moments that Max's mere presence on the football field kind of gives this defense moments to happen, right? So the funny thing is, too, it reminded me of that quote, or not that quote, that video where somebody went to Earl Thomas when he was a Raven and was like, "What's up, ET? I ain't heard your name all night." Earl looked at him and said, "That's a good thing. I play safety, bro. That means there's nothing going on back there. Like, that's the way it's supposed to be." And that's kind of the way I feel when people ask about what Max's numbers look like sometime. Let's see what other guys have benefited from Max being on the field and some of the attention that he has. And again, I've seen it at practice. And I'll give you guys this one story really quick. I was at practice one time, and Max got into the three-point stance, stood up directly, went to the opposite side of the line, jumped at the offensive line. They jumped. He did a jump kick. And I looked at whoever was next to me and was like, the hell is wrong with him? Like, dog, what is, like, he's not wired right. Like, he's not wrapped too tightly, and I think we should address it. And again, as long as you have that type of anchor on the defense, those are his teammates that didn't know how to react when he did that. I don't know what the opposing offensive line does when they see something like that. So that's why, again, we see so much attention paid to Max Crosby, and that's why we see so many avenues for these other guys on the front seven in total to go out there and make some plays too.
Looking forward to this one, really.
I'm excited.
I mean, it's total set at 50. So
is it
expecting points? Yeah. What do you think? You think the Dallas offense is going to have some
if
success?
It's 50.
So
see, now if I had this is what I don't like, because now people are going to think I'm crazy. But if I had the Raiders scoring 14 points and you tell me the over under is 50, that's a 36-14 game. I told my dad in the car, and I didn't think I was going to say it. I told my dad my initial instinct says 35-9.
Wow.
And I didn't look at any of those numbers. So I don't want to be right. But if we're flirting between my original just round, just what floated into my head was 35-9. And you know the funny thing, I've never seen Max's reaction to any of my predictions. I would love to see his reaction to this one if the Raiders win. He probably would look at me and be like, "It was what?"
Yes.
But no, but if we're looking at the over under being what it is, um, again, I have the Raiders scoring about 14 to 20 points. So if the Raiders are going to score more than that, this Raider team is going to have to take shots. And the same way that I didn't like those shots against the Chargers in week 2, maybe you take those shots tonight in week, what is this, week 11 now? Week 11 here on a Monday night with a 2-7 record. Actually, I asked Brock Bowers in the locker room after the loss to Jacksonville, and I said, I was in the minority, but that's perfectly fine. I said, you kicked that extra point. And people were down there looking at me and was like, no, you go for 2. This team doesn't really need to deal with another loss. You take the tie. And they were like, well, why would you play for the tie? Why would you play for the tie? Quick question. Are the Raiders going to the playoffs? Everybody around me said no. You play for the tie. Why would you take another loss into the locker room? I ended up asking Brock Bowers. I said, obviously, the offense always wants to go for 2, always wants to go for 2 when you got a win on the line. But how much different does the locker room feel when you bring back a loss rather than just a tie? And he answered like a vet and was like, nah, can't really think about it now. But when I heard that response, I was like, so some of y'all would have been cool with it, is what I heard. Can't think about it now. We went for the win. We didn't get it, whatever the case may be. I don't know that this team doesn't feel a little more, and this is going to sound crazy, sitting at 2-6-1, right? But yeah, I've talked to guys when they're 3-5, and I've talked to guys when they're 5-3. Like, those small differences matter. And this group adding another loss in a situation where they didn't necessarily have to add the loss, those are the moments that this Raider group can't have. So tonight, yes, you take shots early, you take shots often. At this point, what do you have to lose?
How do you think the offense has looked since they traded Jacoby Myers and now bring in Tyler Lockett? Because I was concerned with, that kind of putting more pressure on Brock Bowers, but how do you think it's gone so far?
It's gonna put more pressure on Brock. It's gonna make it easier to defend Brock. Tyler Lockett is somebody that knows this offense and he knows it well. So he's gonna find his spots. He's gonna get open. He's gonna get behind the defense. He still has some speed in those legs. I think you know what? Whatever, we can do it. I wasn't planning for this to be like a that's out there now or anything, but let's just have the conversation. There was a point in time when Jacoby Myers wanted to be a Raider. There was a conversation after week 18 last season. All of these Raider coaches, I'm losing. Antonio Pierce was last season, right? Yes. I'm like, damn, all these coaches I didn't deal with. After week 18 last year, I asked AP about Jacoby, and he was like, Jacoby's a Raider. Like, regardless of what you guys think, regardless of what anybody thinks, regardless of what he thinks, like, he's a Raider. Like, he embodies what it means to be a Raider. I brought that up to Jacoby in the locker room after the game, and he smiled from ear to ear, and he was like, for that to come from AP, like, that means a lot. Like, I want to be wanted by the franchise. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to be recognized here. Like, I want to be valued here, all these different things. Amari Cooper wanted to be a Raider. Khalil Mack wanted to be a Raider. Devontae Adams wanted to be a Raider. Derek Carr wanted to be a Raider. Here's where I'm going with this. Especially when you're a struggling franchise, not many people want to be here. When you get guys that want to be here, I think they should be rewarded for that. Now, I say all of this to say my phone blew up the most recently when people was hearing that the Raiders were taking calls on Max Crosby. I got a decent amount of phone calls that day. I didn't do too much digging that day, because once national news gets it, it's kind of above local news in a certain sense. In all of my conversations that I've had with Max personally, on the like that you guys have heard, whatever the case may be, like he says all the time, I have this shit tatted on me. Like, this is the franchise that gave me a shot. I don't want to play for any other franchise. This is where I'm at. While I understand that the job is to take phone calls, if I am donning silver and black, do you want to know one person I'm not taking a phone call on? And again, I understand the nature of the job. I understand your job is to make the team better. I completely, especially hearing, ironically enough, that Dallas is the one that called about Max, right? If that is the case, they didn't have Micah Parsons on the roster at the time. So what was the conversation? Again, I understand the job is to make the team better. In that particular, what happens if Max Crosby came out after that and said, trade me? What happens then? What happens if he gets agitated and he says trade me?
It would be very, very bad for this team.
There was a point. Matter of fact, let's add another name. Darren Waller wanted to be a Raider. Everybody that I'm mentioning right now, with the exception of Devontae Adams, was pushed out for the most part. Jacoby would still be here if he could have worked out an extension. Derek Carr would still be here. He still wants to retire here.
He still should.
I think he will. The Darren Waller situation, a little more personal. We understand that Darren wanted to be here before that.
Yes.
Again, especially in a down season like this. And again, we're both in this field, so we kind of know how it works. Sometimes things get out that you do not want out. Sometimes things are put out by certain sides that you want the reaction, right? At this point in a season like this, you almost can't afford for that phone call to get out if you're the Raiders.
No.
And one more thing I'll add really quick. If it were to happen again next year, I don't know that Max don't get fed up with it. I was not directly talking to Max, but we had a conversation with Max in the locker room earlier this season, and they were talking about previous years. And he was like, you know what? I don't really care about previous years. I keep focusing on trying to win, and every year is the same. So, like, I'm going to keep looking forward until we have a winning season. For that player in your locker room to have that outlook, for you to be contemplating trading them. Now, again, the second name I think I actually brought up was Khalil Mack. That's a situation where that trade happened. And Raider Nation, you tell me whether that moved you guys forward or moved you guys backwards. Give us a second. Allegiant Stadium, again, going through the pregame for what will happen tonight during Monday Night Football. Now 3 hours away from Monday Night Football from Allegiant Stadium between the Dallas Cowboys and Las Vegas Raiders. The big boards right now show Marshawn Kneeland. A moment of silence will be held for Kneeland prior to kickoff tonight. And so that should happen in maybe 3 hours or so. Just some other things about this Raider team really quick. I see you're looking at some defense. I don't know if you want to get to that first. I do have some offensive numbers too that we can get to. You mentioned it earlier that the offense has put this defense in some bad spots. Max has said it before. Gino has said it before. Ashton Genty has said it before. Pete has said it before.
Yeah.
Everybody has come to the realization that this defense has played above standard in certain moments, especially considering some of the bad spots that it has been put in by this offense.
Yeah, I mean, holding teams to 24.5 points.
The risk reward hasn't been very rewarding for Gino, right? It's been a lot of bust with very little boom for this offense. And I think what happens too, this offense gets behind the eight ball, and you move away from running the football.
That's right.
And I think when that happens, you eliminate. And the interesting thing is, I asked Ashton Genty a couple of weeks ago about a big block that he had on a blitz pickup, and he had a huge block, and he was hyped, like super hyped after the block. And I talked to him about it, and I said, "How have you learned to find ways to be productive for this offense when you're not getting the football?" Because obviously we've seen him be used more in the pass game a little bit over the past couple of weeks, but he's also getting more comfortable in finding his gap and picking up the blitz, and even getting out into the flat, being that last minute safety valve for Geno. I think what he said too, kind of going back to it, he highlighted his relationship with Geno, and he said that they need to continue to get together. They need to continue to build a rapport, to build that camaraderie. And as that continues to happen, he'll continue to find little moments to help Geno and be successful within his offense. I think what's interesting, and this is not a shot because I haven't talked to him this year, that's Chip Kelly's job. And I'm trying to be as, like, I don't want it to sound like I'm coming off away, but to hear that from a rookie running back, that's obviously what you want to hear. But hearing his response made me want to know what Chip's response would be. So that's just something that I'm interested to see, right? And again, speaking of Chip Kelly and just some of the decisions by him, again, I mentioned Jackson Powers Johnson before. Here's the thing, and I've been asked too by Raider fans about it. They've asked me about the relationship between Chip Kelly and JPJ, and I don't know it personally, right? But I think anytime, and again, we've seen coaches do it, but I think there are times where coaches have come out and say, let's not put too much pressure on this guy, or let's not boost this guy's head up too much. Like, his ego is already where it is. JPJ is an offensive lineman who's already playing out of position, number one. For him to be as big of a storyline as he is because he's a good player. So to see certain moments where it's almost like Chip doesn't want to give him credit, I'm not going to lie, it rubs me the wrong way. It does. If we're just talking history and what it looks like, how has Chip Kelly's relationships with all of his best players ended? Not started, ended. Ask Deshaun Jackson how he feels about him. Ask LaShawn McCoy how he feels about him. And for some reason, it's usually the better players. And I don't know what that is. But now let's move it away from Chip Kelly. But when I say I don't know what that is, I've seen coaches at high school levels, at college, at collegiate levels, and I've seen it at the pro level. I've seen coaches that will sacrifice a game if it means teaching the player a lesson. And I just don't know that it's worth it.
No.
I just don't. So when you're dealing with an offensive line that's already dealing with that, right? And then you're dealing with Colton Miller, who went on IR, right? You're dealing with Dylan Parham, who's dealing with an ankle injury as well. This offensive line, first of all, I don't think any line, offense, defense, any year, any team is ever going to be healthy. But the amount of injuries that the Raiders have had on their offensive line specifically over the last 3 years, yes. If you wanted to give the Raiders offense any type of leeway, any type of wiggle room, it could be the fact that the guys that anchor it all haven't all been together at the same time very often.
I thought you were going to say I don't think any offensive line has ever gotten too much credit, and I was going to agree with that completely. But you're right.
The Cowboy offensive
healthy,
line
and they
in
never
front
get
of
enough
Zeke,
credit.
baby.
Yeah,
That's about it.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, you never hear a quarterback or a running back or any of those guys have a problem letting the offensive line get some attention, right? And I mean, even big-headed a little bit, cocky, feeling themselves. So, yeah, I agree with you saying that rubs you the wrong way.
Yeah.
It's a little.
If there's anybody that I want out there like feeling themselves, I need my kicker to be feeling themselves. I need my offensive line to be feeling themselves. I need my cornerbacks to be feeling themselves. Like, certain guys I don't need in their own head. I do not need them in their head. I kind of need my quarterback feeling himself a little bit. Like, those are just certain positions for me that you want that vigor, you want that excitement. And again, not to sound like that, let's just talk to a novice Raider fan. and ask them to name anybody on the offensive line, they may only know JPJ.
Yeah.
If we're calling a spade a spade.
Yeah.
So again, a lot to break down in terms of this Raiders season, but it all boils down to a 2-7 record that will be added to in some way, shape, or form tonight. In a matter of about 3 hours from Allegiant Stadium, we're sitting here in the press box, about sitting at the 40-yard line or so. Again, 3 hours removed from Monday Night Football, where the Dallas Cowboys will take on the Las Vegas Raiders. I got some VGK news. We'll prep you guys for some high school football. And other than that, I think I'm done. Do you have anything else right now?
Taking this view, like you said, I mean, up here at the press box, about the 40-yard line, we got the ESPN tent over there.
Yeah, I did see that earlier. I seen
awesome.
Swagoo out there at the 10-yard line going through a little walkthrough right now. So definitely some excitement. Definitely. And again, the funny thing is, too, I like being in the stadium sometimes before games because there's nobody in the stands, nobody walking around the concourse, and there's just a quiet hum in the building, right? So I was having a conversation with somebody last night, and I said, I think the mic on the offense or on the line of scrimmage is amazing to me because all you hear is the quarterback cadence, and then all you hear is and then it just stops. And this is the hum that you get before hearing all of that absolute carnage on the field. Again, I think about what Antonio Pierce said all last season. And again, he always repeated it, and he repeated it in a couple of different ways, but fast, physical, violent, like that's what this game is. That's the way that this team wants to play. The interesting thing is when I watch the Cowboys, whenever their defense is clicking, their ears are pent back and they play the exact same way. So I'm expecting two violent forces tonight. And like I said before, the first one to get punched and not react is, I think, the one that's going to ultimately fall short. Speaking of falling short, Minnesota went ahead and picked up a 3-2 victory over the Vegas Golden Knights in overtime. I said 3-2, right? 3-2 victory in overtime. That game-winning goal in overtime came on the lone power play goal of the night for Minnesota. 1-4 on the night, a night where the Golden Knights defended the power play well. All you need is one in overtime, right? All you need is one to go the opposite way. On the opposite side, too, Vegas went 2 for 4 on their power play. And here's the thing, too, right? And this is why I think hockey is so dope, because sometimes the numbers don't tell the story. And I know we say it in basketball, we say it in football, baseball kind of works, but like we say it in all of these other sports where it's a lie. Like the numbers can tell the story. Like the numbers are right there. They're telling the story. Hockey doesn't always do that, right? And I think this one kind of lends to that a little bit, right? The one number that I do think stands out is, and I've said this before, Vegas is always better when they're the aggressor. Whenever Vegas is the aggressor, Vegas is a better team.
Yeah.
We understand that this team is without Mark Stone, right? However, I'm also getting to the point where, and I came to this realization earlier this year, yes, Mark Stone is your captain. Yes, we've seen guys do it until they're however old, right? We understand that. Mark Stone has a lot of miles on his body. Mark Stone has a lot of injuries on his body. Maybe you should stop looking to Mark Stone to be your tone setter.
I have to agree with that completely. They got to step up, and I think Jack Eichel definitely has this year. I like what I've seen from him a lot since bringing in Mitch Marner. Kind of wanted to make a point, right, of saying that he is one of the assistant captains. But yeah, I think even more they could use that leadership.
Yeah, and I think the leadership is one thing, right? But respectfully speaking, too, I don't want Jack Eichel out there smacking guys either to start games.
Okay, like that. No way.
When I say that, like, and again, we've had conversations in the past about Keegan Colasar, right? So we understand what Keegan can do. However, at the same time, too, there's a way to have your presence felt without having to have penalty minutes attached to it. And I think that's what Mark Stone does a very, very good job of. And I think without Mark Stone there, and again, when I was talking about being out physical, there were 45 hits in this game, only 15 by Vegas. And again, I've covered a handful of Vegas games this year, and I watch them from the house, right? When I watch this Vegas team, the times that I've seen things go left is when the team plays on their heels. And when the season first started, I said, oh, okay, this is going to be the makeup of this team. They're going to go down early, and they're probably going to fight back because this team is too skilled offensively to be shut out in most cases, right? So to me, I don't know what Bruce Cassidy can do. I don't know if Bruce Cassidy can do anything, but that's the only thing that I see as an issue for this team, right? We can get to goal scoring in a second. I mean, get to goalkeeping in a second, but toughness.
Jeez, that went over my head. You said aggressor, and yeah, that's it. You mean the hits per game, the physical coming out strong in that
And just
regard for
wanting it.
games. Yeah.
Like, just want, like, respectfully speaking, I know Vegas is Vegas, right? And people think of showgirls and they think of the strip and they think of all of these different things. Again, it's kind of going. The Packers are just like the image for it today, but it goes back to feeling like you won the game before you touch the ice. You didn't win yet. And the interesting thing is, I talked about it a lot last season, or maybe almost 2 seasons ago now, talking to Mike Davis about the Nighthawks. He kept saying, well, everybody wants to be Vegas. Everybody wants to be Vegas. And like week 4, I looked at him and was like, yo, why do you keep saying that? Y'all won 4 games last year. Like, how do you know people are even looking at y'all? And he was like, T, they never don't look at Vegas. I was like, all right. I was like, maybe you're onto something. They're a year removed, they're national champions. So maybe he was on to something, but I think that's what the Golden Knights, going back to what I said earlier about the Packers, going back to what I said about UNLV basketball sometimes, if you feel like the team is looking at you like the big, bad Vegas Golden Knights, sure, you're going to come in there and maybe you won't be as eager to hit somebody against the boards. They're eager to hit you. And the interesting thing is, too, it goes back to what I said last year, and this is not a knock on Jack Eichel by no means, because I actually love him. How can I put this? So Austin Matthews is obviously up there, too. You guys know how I feel about Sebastian Aho. However, most people, if you ask them the best players in hockey right now, they'll say Connor McDavid or Jack Eichel. Over the last 2 seasons, I've told every Vegas Golden Knight fan the issue with me is when those 2 guys are on the ice, it looks like one has a goal to prove this other one shouldn't be in the conversation with me. And that guy isn't Jack Eichel. It looks like Connor is offended every time he's on the ice with Jack. It's like, I'm going to go show you something. And it looks like Jack plays his normal game. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with playing that, but it goes back to my argument about KD in the past when he was with OKC. Yes, the pass that KD made back-to-back games, game 6, game 7, to open man in the corner, you made the right basketball play. Kobe and Jordan would have took the shot because I'm going to have to answer for it regardless. And that's kind of the way that I feel about the Vegas situation. Jack, there's nothing wrong with playing your normal game. Certain games, I need to see a different version of you.
There's another hockey player that jumps out to me that plays similar.
Talk to me.
To McDavid, and he's in Colorado, Nathan McKinnon.
Nathan.
When he's on the ice with another guy that's in the conversation,
he look like he takes it personal.
Yes.
He's like, I don't like this. Let's end this conversation tonight. Matter of fact, they said that they believe that they found Anthony Edwards' Finsta. And I hope that this is really his Finsta because it had just like random little nuggets for things coming up. But there was a picture and there was notes. And there were names that were blanked out, but it was like go at blank every single time. Me versus blank debate ends this year. And I was like, I started plugging in names. I said, okay, I think I understand this one. For instance, I'm going to give you guys one that I agree with. When he said the me versus blank debate stops this year, how often have we compared Ja and Ant? I think in those notes, he was like, you going to stop comparing us this year. This stops now.
Wow.
Now, whether that's the name that's there or not, who knows?
Yeah.
They asked him something about like the vets, like the older guys in the league, and he kind of laughed it off, but he kind of was like, I've eliminated KD, Bron, and Steph. I'm looking at some of these other guys now. So that's what makes me believe that me versus blank debate. He's talking about Ja. I want to be the face of the league. You're in the way. Move. I need Jack to be that more for me. Especially when you got a guy like Tomas Hertl who has a point in 4 straight games. He had actually scored a goal in 3 straight games before this Minnesota Wild loss. But yeah, man, I mean, if I get that out of Jack Eichel, I think we'll get a better Vegas go tonight team. I just don't know if we're gonna get it or what circumstances we get them under.
Excited to see what we get from Carter Hart when he starts working in. Now he is with the AHL team.
Yeah,
So
and the funny thing is,
goaltending.
somebody's in the comments right now, and I'll read it. Somebody said, pretty sure Eichel proved that he wanted it against McDavid in VGK's cup run, scoring 9 points in 6 games and winning the cup, or excuse me, and winning the series 4-2. This goes back to what I've said before. It's now again, numbers are numbers, and I'm completely with you because we actually covered that series, so I'm with you. I don't want to be this guy. It's a mentality thing. And I'm not saying that those are non-weighted numbers or those are pointless numbers, because they're not, right? They're not pointless numbers by no means, and getting the win matters. As somebody who also covered that series, let's go back and look at Connor McDavid's number that series too. Just because the attitude aspect of it. There are times that you're going to outperform your opponent in terms of numbers, right? We talked about that a second ago in terms of numbers not always selling the story, and we said hockey doesn't always do that. We've seen some guys rack up some numbers because teammate play. And I'm not saying that this is a Jack Eichel shot by no means, because we understand how important Jack Eichel is to this team, how important Jack Eichel is to this offense. However, Jack Eichel even tell you he's never played with the group of talent that he has until he got to Vegas. So I don't know that was a change in Jack Eichel's temperament, which is what I'm asking for, more so than the numbers that you're pointing to, because those numbers are great. I'm not saying that they're not, but what could they be if the temperament was different? That's my only point. Again, let's go back to one more point that I just made. Let's go back to Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards plays a certain way every single night. You ever seen Anthony Edwards when Kevin Durant is in front of him? He looks different. You ever seen Ja Morant when any team that's ahead of him in the West comes to town? When Golden State comes to town, when the Lakers come to town, like Ja looks different. Now, again, what comes with that sometimes is pressing in moments. And that's one thing that I will say Jack Eichel does a really, really good job of, because he's within his body. He doesn't over pursue sometimes. And I think that doesn't allow him to play recklessly at certain times. What do you have?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I mean, the one good thing about hockey is we do usually credit it to being a team sport.
I agree with you, Nick.
I mean, Edmonton, what were both of their numbers last year? Because
last year
have made 2 runs now since the Knights have.
Yeah.
To represent the West. So.
And Nick actually just said it in the comments right now. He did agree that McDavid is the best player in the world, but he also argues that he has to be that for the Oilers to have a chance. I completely agree. Yeah. But in terms of just mentality, and this is where I think I want you to kind of meet me in the middle, let's swap those 2 players right now. And that's what I think the argument is. Would the Oilers have made 2 cup runs with Jack Eichel and Connor McDavid's spot? That's why I argue about temperament. I think if you swap and put Connor McDavid over here with the host of talent that he has, yes, I think that they have that same Jack Eichel Stanley Cup. They might have a couple more too, though. So
I think you're just giving Jack Eichel more credit. You're setting his bar higher. You're saying,
well, you're one of the best players in the world. And I've said this before, like Connor McDavid, yes, I believe, I agree with Nick. I do believe he's the best player in the world, but I refuse to believe that Jack Eichel can't be. Right. And that's where I'm at with it. Like, and I think that's the only difference for me. I think on the ice, I see the exact same talent level. One just looks like he's hungrier, and the other one looks like I'm cool with things how they are. That bothers me. It also bothers me that the Knights, and this is funny too, because in my years of covering the Knights, I don't think in doing all of these shows and doing these show notes, I don't think I've written that the Knights haven't been in the top 3 of the Pacific Division very much. It took me forever to write this because I was like, am I going crazy? But currently speaking, now that's true. Currently speaking, Vegas is 8-4-6 on the year. They're tied for 4th in the Pacific Division. The Kings lead everybody with 24 points, followed by Anaheim and Seattle with 23 apiece. How about the Ducks, right?
Right.
Vegas is back in action on Tuesday night, 7 p.m. from the Fortress against the New York Rangers. Vegas is 4-3-3 at home. They're 1-3-2 in their last 6 at home. Now, in my history of covering the Knights, when they're good, they're great at home. And that's something that has to change. This last 6-game homestand wasn't the best for them, right? We kind of just talked about that right now with that 1-3-2 record. I think Vegas has all the happenings, and Vegas has had all the makeup to win it all for the last couple of years. I think these moments, these low moments in November, in January, coming out of the All-Star break, those little moments, if Vegas can avoid falling into those pitfalls when they come, then they'll be fine. I do think Tuesday is a big opportunity. Tomorrow night is a big opportunity for this group to go out there and again be physical and go out there and turn some heads. I love Tomas Hertl, so we'll just see if Hertl can add another point to his ledger. Every time he scores, I think that boosts this offense as well.
Dorofeyev, too.
Yeah. Dorofeyev, excuse me, is we talked about youth movement before with Vegas, right? And I think Vegas has, again, the makeup in a couple of different ways to be here for a long time. I think and I've always said this, I think the main thing with Vegas is you can't overreact to a bad season and blow it up. That's what Vegas can't do. And Vegas has done a pretty good job, especially since winning the Cup, of not overreacting to things not going right. Also, let's mention too, Aiden Hill was placed on IR on Saturday. Not a good sign currently. Obviously, Carl is going to get a lot of opportunities in between the pipes, but obviously you're going to want your Cup winning goalie out there sooner rather than later. We'll see if Aiden can get back on the ice soon. We only have 10 minutes or so left in the show, so we'll go ahead and wrap this up. But I want to prep you guys for a couple of state championship games here in Nevada that will be taking place from Allegiant Stadium next week. Alex wants to talk to you guys about college football playoff, and we will get out of you guys' hair ahead of this Monday Night Football matchup between the Raiders and the Cowboys. We are now, 2.5 hours removed from Monday Night Football. Again, some people are kind of taking the field right now. Not players just yet, but you get you're getting the chain crew kind of getting out there. You're getting some of the team personnel out there. I lied. I do see players. My fault, guys. So guys are getting out there. They're getting acquainted, and the ball is starting to get rolling for Monday Night Football here from Allegiant Stadium here in Las Vegas, Nevada. 4 games to prep you guys for. Shout out to Alex Wright of the Las Vegas Review-Journal for having this story up online. But Pershing County is taking on Needles at 9 a.m. All of these games are next Tuesday from Allegiant Stadium, November 25th. Pershing County versus Needles at 9 a.m. You follow that up with McQueen versus Sloan County, or excuse me, Sloan Canyon at 12:20. And of course, Sloan Canyon has a lot of familiar faces over there. My guy I mentioned earlier, right, former Jacksonville Jaguar, Mike Hughes is the defensive coordinator over at Sloan Canyon. Gabe McCoy is over there. Charles Williams is over there as well. So definitely a lot of UNLV flair over at Sloan Canyon. I don't get to be a fan very often. So if I had to say I was a fan of something, it's definitely Sloan Canyon. So add that to the list, 12:20 p.m. against McQueen. And then 2 more games after that. Spanish Springs against Faith Lutheran at 3:40. And then we follow that up with Bishop Gorman versus Arborview at 7 p.m. Of course, all eyes will be on that matchup for a couple of different reasons. But again, guys, we thank you guys for rocking with us. We thank you guys for supporting us along the way. First show in close to 2 months. We are working on some things behind the scenes, trying to see what works, trying to see what doesn't, trying to see what makes sense, trying to see what doesn't. But we're always eager to come back and talk sports with you guys. We appreciate you guys being active in the chat. We appreciate you guys being active on social media as you always are. Let's see what else we got. Alex, what we got for the CFP?
I'm glad you brought up those
what you got?
School state championship games.
Talk to me.
Typically, I'm covering every week, but no Thursday Night Lights anymore. So kind of just brought me up to date as well. But I'm just excited. I'm excited as we get down. We got 2 more regular season games here and kind of wrapping up for college football week 13 coming up. And just eager. What are you thinking for the 12-team playoff here? Of course, we know the 5 highest ranked champions for the divisions will get a spot. Couple bye weeks, couple home games. I think the SEC might get 5 teams in.
Now, first of all,
So
the
we'll see.
SEC is. I don't want to hear any complaints about the SEC. And I hate to be that guy because they probably will get 5 in there. I'm always skeptical of Ole Miss because I just never know. But
yeah, maybe 4. We'll see. Oklahoma.
Well, eventually they start to bludgeon themselves. Like the SEC is what it is, so you're not going to be unscathed going through it. I think what makes it different for me is the conference is so stacked that the first 3 teams that don't make the college football playoff are going to be in extremely high bowl games anyway, right? Extremely high ranking bowl games anyway. Absolutely. So I think, again, it goes back to college football, right? We talk about the Big 12 having X amount of teams. We talk about the Big 10 having X amount of teams. College football is in a weird state right now. Division or conferences look all wonky and weird. So I think you're going to get wonky and weird things to happen. So if the SEC has that again, it wouldn't shock me. We've had this conversation about the SEC in college basketball. What happens when they get 7 teams in a tournament, 8 teams in a tournament? They're in the conference. Like, that's what you guys let them do it. So when you have 8 teams from the SEC scattered around the tournament, when you have 5 teams scattered around the CFP, you guys allowed this to happen.
Yeah, but that's interesting because college basketball last year, it ended up being, 2 Big 10, 2 SEC. So even though the SEC had so many more to start, Big 10 kind of came out on top, and it's looking like that again, right? Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon here in football are the top dogs right now, and power rating wise, rankings.
Yeah, and see, I'm over here looking too, and Indiana's really interesting to me because you always have that team every year that, like, you look at and you go, okay, they look like they belong. You look at like a TCU, right? And then you see them in a national title game and you be like, oh, okay. I don't get that feel from Indiana. I don't get that letdown feel from Indiana. And it makes me nervous a little bit. It makes me nervous to the point to where I don't want to touch them. So, like, every week I think they could do it. So I stay away from them. So that's just one team that I will say is very, very interesting for me. Shout out to Texas A&M, right? Talk about a well-coached group. I know I'm kind of going beyond the college football playoff now, but I'm just looking down. I've said this before. I don't know if I trust Ole Miss. I'll leave it with this one because I don't want to turn into a negative Nancy. I think Carson Beck is a good college football quarterback. I don't know what happens beyond that. I say that to say I thought Georgia got better with Gunnar Stockton.
It's taking some time.
Yeah, and I just don't know that I don't know that I'm the biggest Carson Beck fan. I don't. Like, he's a good college football quarterback because of what we see, but I'm just not high on it. And I think that's some of the reasons why when I see some of these teams that are moving down, you talk about quarterback play. Let's talk about what Jaden Maava looks like with Lincoln Riley and USC, right? Yes. Has him looking like one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in all of college football. When you have teams like that lurking, I think quarterback play is going to come to the forefront, which is going to be interesting because then where does Notre Dame go, right? Like, where does Michigan go, right? So I'm just interested to see where some of these teams land. Where does Texas go? So I'm actually looking right outside of the college football playoff to see if some of those names end up in it.
I'll tell you right now, that might be the game of the weekend, USC at Oregon.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's what I have. Well, I haven't looked at everything, but I'm definitely not missing that one. That's one I have to catch.
Because right now, I mean, USC 6-1 as well in
the Big Ten.
Yep.
So the winner is going to take over the Big Ten, or at least that side of the Big Ten. Where I was ignoring number 1.
Yes, but one of these two can get into the playoffs still.
Yeah, for sure, definitely they could. This is probably going to be a CFP eliminator then.
Yes, well, for USC for sure. But
well, I'm not going to lie. If they get past Oregon, Oregon is going to drop beyond.
Yeah.
They're going to drop beyond Bama. They're going to drop beyond, well, maybe not. Ooh, it'll be interesting to see.
It will.
Because Oklahoma just beat Bama, so they're up. So
I know.
Yeah, this should be interesting.
That's when it gets interesting.
This should be interesting. This weekend will tell us a lot more. As you just said, 2 more regular season games to go in the college football playoff or in the college football season. But speaking of, we have about 2.5 hours left until we get to Monday Night Football between Las Vegas and Dallas here from Allegiant Stadium. We're gonna go get set up. We're gonna go get into our spots and kind of lock in for the day. Again, we thank you guys for getting back into the mix with us, hopping back on the saddle with us. We appreciate you guys. Hopefully, we can get some more news for you guys in the coming weeks about what is to happen with the radio show, with the media company as a whole. Alex, I thank you as always for joining us. To the Raiders, thank you guys for opening up this booth for us. To Harry Ruiz and the Spanish broadcast team, we appreciate you guys as well. Will Kiss, Cam Russo, we appreciate you guys. We thank you guys. You got anything else for us?
No, that's it. So I'm excited about the game tonight and then this Friday.
Yeah,
Right?
let's get to
Back
it.
here again for Hawaii.
Let's get to it. Yeah, I'm back here again for on Wednesday. Where am I at on Tuesday? I don't think I'm at the VGK game tomorrow. I do have that Montana State game for the Lady Rebels. Wednesday for my birthday, I am in the bar. Much to my friend and family dismay, they are very upset that I'm in the bar. But I'm like, hey, I'm 30 now. Like I can be in the bar making money. It might be more fun in the bar actually on my birthday. So Wednesday, if you know where I work, stop by the bar. It's gonna be a time. And then this weekend, back to work, back to work and back to business. So until next time, gang, we appreciate you guys. Keep on talking.